Hi, everyone, and welcome to our series, Coping with Crisis. Today, we're going to study help from the right people. And as we have been introduced into our own lives, this coronavirus crisis where we're shut down, our economy's shut down, our lives have basically been shut down. We've been under what I call house arrest for all this time. It's caused a lot of disruption in people's life, obviously. And a lot of people are having a hard time struggling with this new reality and the dynamics it brings to their family and the dynamics it brings to them. A lot of people are getting despondent, they get into depression, they get into old patterns of old behavior, and they're trying to do their best to cope, but they're using humanistic means of coping rather than what God provides and His tools and His grace and mercy. And so part of this is kind of a quasi-counseling that I'm doing through this Coping with Crisis series. And so these are some of the things I would tell someone who sat in front of me in my counseling ministry if they were struggling with a problem that came to their life. And we've done several before, and now this is another installment in this series, and I'm going to continue to do it for a while so that it's just there on the internet that people can access. And because whether it's the coronavirus crisis or you have a crisis in your family, a death in your family, or this or that, whatever the crisis is, it's still biblical principles that'll help you in anything that you encounter in life. So what we're going to talk about today then is when we're going through a crisis, when we're going through a problematic situation in our lives, it is extremely important that you surround yourself with the right people. And I'll define the right people in just a bit, but most people don't do this. Most people actually will surround themselves with the wrong people. And this is very important to understand because 1 Corinthians 15, Paul talks about this. He goes, bad company corrupts good character. And the opposite would be true. Good company builds up good character, right? But bad company corrupts good character. And so with that principle in mind, we have to understand it will be extremely important whether or not you have victory based on the people that you put in your life to help you in the crisis. And again, most people have a hard time surrounding themselves with the right people. What we would say in the counseling world is that their people picker is messed up for various reasons. Reasons that sometimes I have to go into when I'm counseling somebody. But suffice it to say, they're affected by typically three different areas. They're affected by their past relationships, they're affected by their experiences, and they're affected by what they were taught. And those three hinder them sometimes in the ability to discern people, the right people or the wrong people. And so there's kind of a dysfunction in that because they haven't worked on those issues in their life. And so anyway, I'll give you an example. Like if the person's trained to be an enabler, they'll pick an addict to be in relationship with. If a person wants control, they'll pick other adults who act like children. If the person wants to be mothered and doesn't want any control and wants to be irresponsible, they'll pick some type of adult that's a parent to them. And so that parent will tell them what to do and control them, and they like that. They have no problem with that. And that typically happens in marriages. People end up in a role where they're married to a mother figure or they're married to a father figure, and they play the role of the child or they play the role of the parent in the marriage, and it is a really dysfunctional marriage. But they think they're getting along, but they actually have a parent-child relationship. And so that doesn't help them, obviously. And they do that with their friends a lot of times. A lot of times they want to be around people who make them laugh and have a good time and things of that nature. But they don't want to be around people that actually will convict them, will challenge them, will help them go deep. And so they surround themselves with good time buddies that just want to have a good time. And there's parts of our lives that we need that. We just want to need a good time, and we don't want to have to go so deep in everything. And I get that. But if that's who you surround yourself with in a crisis moment, those good buddies can't help you. They're so shallow, they don't know what to tell you. They have no ability to help you in anything. They'll say things like, well, just hope for the best, or, I'll be praying for you. And that's great that they're praying for you, but that's as much as they can do for you. They really don't know how to help you and navigate you through your problems, because good time buddies are shallow. And that's not a knock on them. That's just the way they are. They're too shallow to help you. So you have to get to people that have deep spiritual resources in them, that are mature, that understand biblical wisdom. And that means that the person will typically have to be studying the Bible for decades. They're typically older, and they're typically, you can see the maturity in their behavior, right? Their behavior is a key in understanding their maturity. But yet people don't look for that many times. Some people actually do know who are the spiritually mature and who are not. And they actually avoid the spiritually healthy and the spiritually mature, because they know that type of person will lovingly confront them, tell them what they're doing wrong, unmask them, or pull down their front and get to the real heart of the issue. And so they avoid those types of people, because with the shallow people they put in their lives, they can put on a front. No one knows anything is going on. But when they're around mature people that understand the Bible, understand human behavior and wisdom and whatnot, they don't like being around them. They actually will avoid them. They won't go to them. And that puts them at a deficit in handling their problems, because there's some element in their problem that they're going to be forced to change something about them. There's going to be something they have to give up, something they have to do differently, something they're going to have to change. And they know, talking to a spiritually mature person, that that person's going to point that out in them and say, you need to adjust, and this is how you need to adjust. They don't want to hear that. They just want to take their stuff to a shallow person, dump their load, and make those person feel sorry for them. And the only thing they're going to get out of that, I'll be praying for you. And that really doesn't solve the problem. But they feel good in one sense because they dumped. But there's no solution. A shallow person can't give you a solution. And this is the problem. So anyway, sometimes that's intentional. And people will do that. And you say, well, have you talked to a counselor? No, I tried that 20 years ago. I didn't get the right advice. Well, there's other counselors. Have you talked to a pastor? Have you talked to someone spiritually mature that went through the same things you're going through? No. And when you hear that, you obviously know they're not really wanting help. So anyway, we have to surround ourselves with the right people in order to deal with our problems and crises. Another thing that we do when we get a problem or a crisis, and another reason we avoid the right people, is we typically get what we call problem-oriented instead of people-oriented. Now, we work to solve the problem, and that's a good thing, but we end up trying to do it alone. And that's a bad thing. The first thing you and I need to do when a problem comes our way or a crisis comes our way is not to solve the problem immediately. It's to take that problem to other mature believers and ask for help from them in this problem. And then you can problem solve with the help of more mature people that you surround yourself with. And that's part of wisdom, right? You are never to go at it alone. The first thing is to get relational with the people that are going to help you and then try to solve the problem. But again, most people don't do that. They become fiercely independent when their problem hits them, and they try to work it out on their own. And because of their pride, they won't ask for help. Well, they won't understand me. They don't get me. Look, there's going to be a lot of people in your life that haven't went through the same things you're going through. I get that. But that doesn't mean you can't reach out to people who know the Bible and are mature, because the point is, you're not going to find anyone that's went through everything you've went through. But if someone knows the Bible very well, they know the general principles, and the general principles don't change. Wisdom doesn't change. And those who know how to apply wisdom and the biblical application to your problems can help you solve your problems. But you get this mentality of, well, I don't want to talk to anyone that hasn't went through what I went through. Well, good luck. And I'll tell you this, even those who have went through your problem sometimes don't even know how they dealt with it. They don't even know how to deal with it. And so, I've seen this in athletics. There are players who played the game but simply can't coach it. And sometimes you run into that person. They went through something, but they don't know how they went through it. They can't tell you what they did. They have no clue. And that kind of person is the kind of person I know in athletics who, they might be a Hall of Fame player, but they couldn't coach their way out of a box. They simply don't know how to teach other people. You have to typically go to people who have the gift of teaching, who can connect dots, or has the gift of counseling, or whatever, to help you. And so, when we become problem-oriented instead of relationally oriented, we start trying to solve our problem by ourselves. And this starts messing us up, because I can guarantee you, you won't see other factors that are involved. You won't see the bigger picture because you're too close to the problem. You're too close to the problem. Like, for instance, when people have trouble with their kids, they're at a loss of, like, I don't know why he or she's acting like this. And they're like totally clueless. Well, the reason they're clueless is because they're too close to the problem. They're too emotionally involved with the problem in order to see where the deficit's at. They know there's something bad happening, but they don't know how to solve it because they're too close. That's why you have a third party that comes in who's not emotionally involved, who has some distance as a third party that says, this is easy to see. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. And typically, parents are just too close to the problem. You got all kinds of weird stuff happening. You have sometimes emotional incest that's happening with people and their kids. And what I mean by that is they see the kid as a partner rather than a child, and so they dump all their emotions and all their problems on the kid, and that kid's too young to handle all that. And that's where favoritism comes in in kid relationships. And the parent doesn't even know they're doing emotional incest with one of their children. Now, when I use the word incest, we're not talking about sexual. We're talking about they're getting their emotional support from their kids and not their husband. And that's a major problem. But that happens all the time. You know what's really easy to see? You can see it from afar. You can see what the parent's doing. They'll have a favorite child, and typically the child is a compliant child that does anything mom or dad wants, and that becomes the favorite child. And then if one of the spouses is checked out emotionally and can't connect, that person will then use the child to connect to emotionally. And that's where we get the term emotional incest. It's not a proper relationship. But nonetheless, I give that as an example of why parents can't see that, because they're too close to the problem. And they won't be able to solve the problem. They have to have a third party come in and help them. Hey, you know what you're doing? This is what's happening. I use it as an example, and there's myriads of examples I could use, but suffice it to say, that's why they can't see it. This thinking that I got this one, I can solve the problem, I don't need anyone to help me, that comes from pride. That comes from a lack of humility. There's a lot of things you and I can't solve. And I can tell you, even in my own life, I look at certain things and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So what do? I reach out to my peers in the ministry and I talk to them. I call them on the phone and say, hey man, have you seen this before? I don't know what to do. And I go to them, those who have been in ministry longer than I have, or their peers in ministry or whatnot, and I get their take on it. And I'll say, am I seeing this correctly? Am I doing the right thing here? and then I'll bounce stuff off of them, and they give me feedback. Feedback is key to understanding if you're on the right path or not. You have to have good feedback, and not from the good time buddies, not from your friends who are shallow Christians. We're talking about people who know the Bible. So, what is the problem? We don't want to appear weak. We don't want to appear like we don't know the answers. We don't want to ask for help because it makes us look bad. And obviously, God is wanting to help us. And so they pray alone with God, say, God, help me with my problem. And guess what happens? Their problem is not solved. Because you know why? God is saying, I am helping you, but you're refusing the help. I'm sending you people that can help you, and you refuse to go to them. So when they're asking, I don't understand why God doesn't help me. He's sending you people. You're just not reaching it out. He says, seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. You have to get up off the spiritual couch and seek it from the right people who are gifted by the Holy Spirit. But most people refuse the help. Proverbs 18:1 says this, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. So did you catch that? One of the reasons people isolate in their problems and say, I got this one, is because they have a desire that they want to achieve that they know is not biblical, that they know is not right, but it's a desire of theirs. And so if they brought that desire to a mature person, that mature person would spot it and realize what the person's up to and confront them. So what the Proverb 18:1 is saying is, the reason many people don't ask for help is they have an ulterior motive. They have a desire that's not biblical, and that's why they don't ask for help. And because of that, they rage against all wise judgment. Because if someone does spot that out to them and says, this is what you're doing, they will get angry at the person who's telling them that. There's many, many times I've been in counseling and I tell people the truth. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing happen. And this is what you're doing. They get mad at me. They get mad at me. They get upset because I'm pointing something they know is there, but they'll just say, he didn't tell me the right thing. I didn't like what he said to me or whatever. And I know the game they're playing. I know the game. That they're raging against wise judgment because they have an ulterior motive. That's why they don't go to the right people. That's why they don't seek the right answers. They're up to something. Let me again use this illustration that I used about emotional incest. Do you think if a counselor or a pastor confronted someone saying, hey, you're doing this with your child and this needs to stop immediately, what do you think the reaction would be? I'm not doing that. I can't believe you would suggest that I am doing that. How dare you say that? That's the reaction. They rage against wise judgment against the third party. That's the initial thing. They would not say, boy, howdy, you nailed it. You're right. I am doing that and I need to stop. You think that's what they're going to say? No, they're going to get mad because they have a desire that they want to do it because they're not getting anything from their spouse. The spouse is in an emotional deficit. They get nothing from the spouse, so they'll turn to their child. And typically it's the oldest child. And typically it's the opposite sex child. And so with that being in mind, they don't want to hear the truth because they like what they got going on. And if you stop them, they wouldn't know where to get that emotional support. Where should they get emotional support? Simple. The body of Christ. They're to get it from the body of Christ. That's where the emotional support comes from. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. They want to go with what their little system has set up. So when a problem comes our way, or a crisis that we're in, there will actually be a test in it of whether or not you will accept help. And that's the test on any problem that comes your way. Will you accept help? Because the help that comes to you will come in a form that you won't like. Okay? Now follow me on this. When God helps and he sends people to you, again, the test is whether you're going to accept the help. Well, why wouldn't I accept the help? Because it's going to come in a form that you don't like. And that's another test. It will typically not come from a buddy. It's not going to come from a relative that you have some type of relationship with, that you're comfortable with. No, it is going to come from someone that's going to make you uncomfortable. Okay? And that's their job. So let me give you an example. The story of Elijah being fed by the ravens, you all know that story, right? And he got his water from the brook. Why did God send an unclean bird to Elijah? A raven is an unclean bird, and the bird had the meat in its mouth. Elijah had to take the meat from an unclean bird and accept it from an unclean bird and eat it. Otherwise, he's not going to eat. Why did God do that to Elijah? Because, well, the big story is Elijah represents Israel, right? And Israel is not accepting the help that God is providing because they have their qualms about the form in which it's coming. So he's doing this to Elijah to be a kind of a symbolism of Israel. But what does Elijah do? He accepts the raven. He accepts the help that God has given him. And then after that, he takes him to a widow woman that's not even Jewish, and he has to accept help from a Gentile woman, a non-Jewish widow, which is extremely humbling, that a widow who's a Gentile has to help him, and he has to accept that too. And he does. But what's the point? When God sends you help, and you ask for help, send me people to help me. The people he will actually surround you with are going to be ravens and a Gentile woman, so to speak. What do you mean? It won't come in the form that you expect it to come in. And then it will actually make you very uncomfortable. And so the first thing we should be doing is accepting the raven, accepting the Gentile widow who actually is the one bringing us the help. And many, many people have this hang up. They want to ask God for help, but then define to God in a demand how the help comes. Well, you don't get that option with God. You don't get to ask for help and then demand how that help comes. In the form, you want it in a certain form. He doesn't do that. I'm sorry. Does he want to help you? Of course he wants to help you and I. He'll give us grace and mercy. But when that grace and mercy comes, it's not going to be in the form that you like. And you have to come to grips with that. It won't be. So what happens is God sends ravens to people and they say, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. And God's like, I'm sending you all the help you can get. And you're refusing the ravens because it's not coming in the form that you like it to come in. Well, shame on you and I if we refuse the meat from the ravens. That will be a test. That will be a test in our lives. Okay, so let's talk about this. One of the things we're called to do in the scripture is to carry one another's burdens, according to Galatians chapter 6. And that means we are to share our burdens with others to help us in our problems. We not only help others in their burdens, but we have to share our burdens to others. So that's part of it. We carry one another's burdens. That's a biblical concept. We don't carry our own burden. Now, what it means by burden, it means beyond the normal knapsack. It's the idea of carrying a knapsack, and we have our normal carry things and weights that we carry every day. That's normal. We only share our burdens if it's beyond what is normal. Whether it's in our lives or with other people, that's how we share one another's burdens. It's beyond normal, okay? And so then we share that with who? Good, mature Christians who probably will confront us and tell us the straight dope, so to speak, and tell us the truth of the matter and point out the things we're doing wrong. That's who you surround yourself with, not people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. Okay? And also, we turn to God as well. That's a given. That's totally part of the whole thing. But God is going to work through other people. He's going to work through his scriptures and through other people, okay? Because when you ask for help, that's how he speaks to you, through his scriptures and through other people. So when we surround ourselves with this type of person, a mature believer who give us proper feedback, tell us the truth, you get certain things from them. You get the ability to cope with the problem and navigate through it. You get support, you get wisdom, obviously. They will give you agape love with boundaries, right? You'll get the proper feedback. You won't get what you want to hear. You'll get what you need to hear. And you'll get boldness. You'll get courage to face this problem. Because when you have people around you that are encouraging you, you can endure more. And then, yeah, there will be people that have been there, done that, and tell you how they went through it, and they're mature, and they say, this is how the Lord helped me cope with this. You're going to get guidance that's based on biblical morality and values. You're going to get good accountability from these types of people. That's one of the reasons they won't accept the Raven, is they don't like accountability. But also, let me make a note here. When you go to the right people, they will give you advice that's based on biblical morals and values. And you say, well, that's what I expect. Yeah, I know, but the shallow Christians don't do that. They don't have enough depth to tell you when you're crossing lines morally or crossing lines in value. I've heard Christians give the most unbiblical advice I could ever imagine. They gave advice to people who wanted to divorce their spouse, and they had no biblical reasons to do so. Obviously, according to the Messiah, the only way you can divorce your spouse is for marital unfaithfulness and death, okay? Or abandonment of an unbeliever, okay? So those are the three options. If you don't have those three options, you cannot tell someone to divorce their husband or divorce their wife. Well, I've heard Christians, well, you just got to do what makes you happy. You just got to do what makes you happy. And I wouldn't stay with him, because why do you want to live the rest of your life unhappy and this and that? And you hear people saying that kind of nonsense. And what these people are giving advice with is, you deserve to be happy, but don't worry about being holy. Don't worry about your biblical morals. Don't worry about your values. Just be happy. Well, right there, I can tell you, that's unbiblical advice. And yet you'll hear it from Christians. You just got to do what makes you happy. I wouldn't stay with him. And yet they're groundless in saying those things. They have no biblical authority to say those things. That's what we're talking about. Don't surround yourself with people like that. All of this, to summarize this, is part of discipleship, by the way. This is discipleship. We're all called to go to someone that's further down the road than us, more mature, more biblical knowledge than us, in order to be discipled. So ask yourself, do you have that kind of person even in your life? Or is all your acquaintances, all your friendships, just peer friendships, buddy friendships? But you don't have anyone in your life that's higher than you, that's beyond you. If you don't, then that is a lack of discipleship. You are to seek those people out. You are to say, hey, help me. But if you try to do Christianity on your own, you're going against the framework in which God designed it. You need other people who are more mature than you. So the question remains for you and I. Do we want help with our problem? Of course we do. Then we have to surround ourselves with spiritually healthy people and have to rely on them humbly to help us. Or do you want to go at it alone in pride and receive no help? I've tried to do that, and it doesn't work, because all you do is you end up stagnant and you never overcome the problem on your own. I've been there, done that. I will warn you, don't do what I did. So the choice is ours. There's a pathway out, but only if you will humble yourself. So that brings us to our conclusion today. We want you to watch us next week as we produce another one of these videos of how to handle crisis in our life or problems. We're going to continue to produce more of them. Anyway, if you would like to subscribe, which would be great, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and then hit the bell option, and that will alert you every time a new video comes up, and you can do that. Also, if you would like to contribute to our ministry, we're a very small church. Right now we can't meet in the school or whatnot. If you'd like to contribute to our church, you can do so through our internet site, rockharborchurch.net. Go to the giving tab and you can give online, or if you'd like to help us out by just sending us a check, you can write to Rock Harbor Church, P.O. Box 10868, Bakersfield, California, 93389, and we would very much appreciate that. Also, if you'd like to receive text alerts, and the text alert will only be if we're shut down from YouTube, and we would alert you in that case, in that scenario, of a new platform we might be on. So you can send in your cell phone information to info@rockharborchurch.net. Give us your cell phone. We won't abuse it. We're going to keep it in our system, our storage. And then if something happens to us where we disappear off YouTube, then we'll text alert you and tell you where we're at. So you can do that anytime at your convenience. God bless you. We'll see you next time.